Hello, Libronauts.
Hello.
Happy last day of July.
Yes. Already.
I know
It
it
went fast, but it went slow. I don't
exactly.
know.
Yeah.
I felt a little long, I guess.
Yeah.
But
But at the same time, there's like 1 month left before school starts again. So
true. Yeah, exactly.
crazy. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Elise. I am the host of Libronauts Book Club. And tonight I have with me Jordyn of Sorry Book Solid as my co-host. And for the month of July, we read The Last Murder at the End of the World.
Yes, we did.
So, Jordyn, do you want to introduce yourself and then give us a little synopsis of what the book was?
Sure. All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Jordyn. As Elise mentioned, my channel is Sorry Booked Solid. I read a wide variety of genres. I usually say I like to read anything realistic. So I read a lot of contemporary fiction, a lot of mystery thrillers. I really enjoy sci fi, or at least I enjoy trying sci fi and kind of narrowing down my specific tastes within the genre. So I was very excited to join the book club when you asked. And yeah, The Last Murder at the End of the World. All right. This is a futuristic sci fi murder mystery, basically, set on this island, which I believe takes place in Greece. I
Mhm.
think they said it was an island in Greece. That is the last island in existence, or it's housing the last humans in existence. Um, and so it's set far into the future and it explains what happened. And at the start of this book, it's a little bit confusing. It basically like starts a countdown where we know the book is counting down to the complete end of the world and end of humanity. And it says that unless a few key events happen, everyone is going to die. So then we're following the characters to see if they can get those key events to happen in order to save themselves and save humanity. And it goes from there, and it's confusing. It's a lot. There's a murder mystery at the heart of it. One of the characters does die somewhat early on, and kind of one of the key elements is solving that murder in order to save the world. But yeah, that's my best shot at a book summary for this for this book.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. This is definitely a very complicated book, at least in my opinion.
Yes.
Like, I don't know. I think I even put it in our Discord at one point that it was kind of hurting my brain just trying to keep everything straight.
Yes. It was very, is laborious the right word? I don't know. It felt really labor intensive to read
Yeah.
this book to me too, because yeah, there was so much to keep straight.
Mhm.
And I was keeping notes partially because I knew we were doing this discussion, so I wanted to make sure I was taking notes anyway to be able to remember. But even if I wasn't doing that, I think it would have been a lot of brain power
Yeah.
to get through this book regardless.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Hello, Keisha.
Isha.
Thanks for joining. Looks like Keisha rated it 4 stars. Got a 4.5. Have to watch the replay. 4 stars. Love it. Never read Stuart Turton. Okay. So that actually kind of brings us into our first question, which is, have you read from this author before and how did it compare to his other works?
Yes. So I have read only his, I think his first book. I
Mhm.
think he's only written three total.
I think so.
Um, this is his third. So I read The 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle.
Mhm.
That one is like a murder mystery with a main character that like goes into different bodies
Mhm.
and has to solve the mystery. So it's similarly like sci-fi-ish murder mystery. And then his second book, I think, is more of like a historical on a ship, set on a
Oh,
ship
right.
murder mystery. I have not read that one though. Um, so just the one, his
Yeah.
first one.
Yeah, I owned the 7.5 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle for a long time. And then I did finally unhaul it. It didn't really seem like it would be for me.
Yeah.
But so this was my first book that I had actually read by him. And I'm not upset that I got rid of that book because I think if they are similar as far as the murder mystery type flow of things go, like, I don't know if my brain could handle it, to be honest with you.
Yeah. It's interesting. So the first book that I read and this one, it's like they have a lot of similarities, I
Mhm.
think, in what they're trying to do as a book and like all of these ideas they're trying to cram in. The plots are like couldn't be more different,
Yeah.
but the writing and the way he jams all that into his mysteries, I think is very much the same. So I do think despite how different his plots and settings are, I think you can pretty clearly identify, like, if you've read and enjoyed one, you can probably trust that you'll enjoy the others and
Mhm.
vice versa.
Yeah. And actually at the end of his or at the end of this book, it, talked about he said something about how his next book, he wants it to be a thriller, like
Yeah, I
yeah,
saw that, like, a contemporary yeah, what did he say?
he said something about it
A
being
more
wild.
contemporary thriller thing, and
Yeah.
then he says it's going to be wild.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed that, author's note from him
Mhm.
at the end. Uh, I usually like author's notes in general, but I thought it was nice that he acknowledged like his readers and how all of his books are so kind of different and
Different, yeah.
grand in scope and like thanks for trusting me or thanks for
Yep.
coming along for the ride. I think that's kind of cool that he
Yeah.
acknowledged that.
He's very self-aware in that way, I
Yeah.
think, because I
Yeah.
was like, that's exactly what I was thinking is like, holy cow, like all of them, just the summaries sound so different. And he's super aware of that. He's like, "Yep, I know it."
Yeah. The next one will be too, but
Yeah.
yeah.
Alright. So sounds like yeah, it sounds like this is maybe the first one for a lot of people. One thing I love about his books, they make me think, and I love trying to figure it out. Second book by him. Okay, so she read the Evelyn Hardcastle one, also gave it 4 stars. So Keisha is a fan.
Mhm.
Hi, Sam. Thanks for joining. Okay, first time reading him. I kind of agree. Bored with the
Mhm.
investigator perspective. Yeah. It's like I'm too exhausted to try to figure it out. Yep, yeah, that author note was nice.
Yeah.
All right. So, there's a lot of sci-fi elements in this book.
Yes.
So let's talk about some of them. What were
Okay.
some that you thought were really cool or
Yeah.
interesting?
So are we going into spoilers or do we wanna keep it spoiler free for a while or where
Um,
do we go?
I mean, honestly, I know some people might wanna watch this and haven't finished the book yet, but
Mhm.
I personally like getting into spoilers. I wanna just, like, dig in deep to
Mhm.
everything. So I would say at this point, if you haven't read the book and you don't wanna be spoiled, maybe, come back later. So, yes, let's dig into some spoilers.
Okay. Sounds good because I think well, the first one that's not really a spoiler, I think, is the AI
Mhm,
consciousness that we get perspectives from and that we find out is basically present in
mhm.
all of the characters' heads. That's very sci-fi and futuristic feeling. Um, and definitely like added a lot to the book, was very important to the
Yeah.
plot of the book. Um, let's see, other things. The people themselves, the fact that they're not actually human is
Mhm.
also obviously sci-fi. They were manufactured or created by the humans in the book
Mhm.
um, to serve specific purposes, and then they had very specific quirks because they weren't actually human. That was
Yeah.
also really interesting to read about. Um, like what about them was similar to what humans actually act like, and then what was different and why. I
Mhm.
liked when it explained why they did certain things. With the humans, like why they die at age 60 and
Yeah.
how that encouraged the humans that they were originally made for to keep purchasing like newer models. That was an interesting an interesting element. Yeah, the weird fog, is that considered sci-fi? Definitely just the futuristic, like apocalyptic nature of it, I think is sci-fi. Just any kind of end of the world scenario. I do think falls into that category. So the whole fog thing and how it almost eradicated all of the humans
Yeah.
was a big one.
And then I know there was like the memory gems that they could
Oh, yeah, yeah.
essentially harvest from their brains after they passed
Yeah.
to
That
stick
was
on.
interesting. I feel like I would have liked a little bit more of that, of, like, seeing the people actually go and relive, like, their loved ones' memories or something.
Mhm.
I thought that would be a little bit more ever present in
Yeah,
the actual storyline, because that's a really interesting concept, and it
yeah,
would be really cool to be able to have somebody's memories from their life.
yeah. It would be, kind of weird though, because like, if it's literally every single memory that they've had, because I know when they were looking through some of the memory gems that they had come across, they were starting, like, at the childhood, and they said something about kinda, like, fast forwarding through those parts.
Yeah.
So it that part would be kind of weird,
Yeah,
or
you would
any
need, like, a
dark memory.
cataloging
Yeah,
process to, like,
exactly.
yeah, know how to get to certain points that
Yeah,
you wanted to see.
like, skip to a different chapter or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, that's true. Thrillers are usually a little bit more fast-paced, so that will be interesting.
Yeah.
Um, the what were some of the other I'm trying to remember. Well, so, okay, regarding the people or the
Yes.
villagers, I guess. Before we found out that they weren't actually human, it was kinda discussed, like, the whole, um, receiving a child type thing. They
Yes.
kind of alluded to that a little bit, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh my gosh, that's really interesting, like, what do they mean?" And then when you
Yeah.
break out that, it's like they grow them in this cauldron type thing
Mhm.
until they're 8 years old, and then they
Mhm.
release them to the village.
Yeah, and they, like, vet the parents through
Yeah,
this process to make sure that they're, yeah, fit to take on a child.
yeah,
Was v interesting.
very. Okay, so,
What else?
with AI playing a big role, I mean, AI is kind of present right now in
Mhm.
various forms. So as far as something like Abby, how far into the future do you think that is for us? Like, is that around the corner or is that like far into the future?
I can totally see something like this being within our lifetime, like some kind of interconnected, like, communication
Mhm.
consciousness. Because I liked in this book how there were some examples where, like, people were separated and they had a question for another person. So they were like, "Hey, Abby, ask this person about this." And so it's like one step past a phone call,
Yeah.
obviously, because you just had to, like, think it, and then they would ask the question and they'd respond back.
Mhm.
I feel like that is not that far away. Like, everybody just gets AirPods implanted into them, and then you have like open communication with everybody who's connected to you.
Mhm.
I can totally see that. As
Yeah.
far as, like, how m how much Abby had control over their actual, like, actions, and
Mhm.
because I think it could, like, stop people from physically doing something.
Yeah.
That feels farther away, obviously, to
Yeah.
be able to physically manipulate humans, but, yeah, just the interconnected and then adding the AI element of, like, additional knowledge, I think
Mhm.
is not that far, and it is kind of scary, but at the same time, it's it's kind of what we already have, it's just not
In our
in
heads.
our
Yeah.
heads. Exactly, it's just at our fingertips.
Yeah. And I think too, because the humans or the elders, they also had Abby, but she couldn't control them like she could the
Right,
villagers.
right.
So, that kinda sounded like what you were saying of, like, maybe the communication thing in our head, but
Yeah,
not being able to control us or like, "Okay, go to bed now."
mhm. Yeah, that was very interesting.
Yeah. So do you think that society would benefit from something like Abby?
It's hard to I'm sure there would be pros and cons, just
Mhm,
like every advancement in technology. Like, I do think in some ways it would be really handy, like I
mhm,
said, to be able to remotely communicate with people that easily. Like, I'm thinking of, like, people who need help or something and you're
Yeah.
in a really remote situation. Like that seems handy, especially
Mhm.
if it came with some kind of like it also tracked you and knew where you were at all times, things like that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, definitely downsides that I can see coming up. And I think just the overall advancement of technology in general, it just gets more and more dangerous. Like the more advanced it gets, because we just don't know what that means
Mhm.
for all of us.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I could definitely see, like, hacking situations being
Mhm,
problematic,
mhm,
especially if it can control you to a certain extent, because then
mhm,
somebody can hack into it and, like, control you and make you do things.
mhm.
So that could be really scary.
Yeah, or feed you like I think it gets hard to know what is like objective, truthful information
Yeah.
when it's coming from something like that because even just thinking about how like our social media algorithms and things like cater to you and your
Mhm.
beliefs and people that you interact with on a normal basis, like even the truth of news on the internet and stuff is not really true at all. So it's like, how would you possibly regulate that for something that widespread so that when Abby tells you something, you could trust that it really is the truth? And I think we saw that in the book too, because as we got further into the book, Abby's intentions or like what Abby was created for became clear. And in some cases, it wasn't to always tell the truth. It was
Mhm.
to serve like the ultimate mission of saving humanity or serving Nima's mission or whatever it was given. So like
Yeah.
what the truth uh is not really a clear question either, but that would be kind of a scary part of it is not knowing if what you're being fed is really true or not.
Yeah. And I think too, maybe like a pro for it could be if you have like that conscience in your mind that literally speaks to you.
Yeah.
So maybe it'll make crime less common.
Mhm.
Um, that could potentially be, or
Or if
even bullying or something.
yeah. Yeah, or if it could tell you, like, warnings, because
Yeah.
I think sometimes Abby would say to them, like, "This isn't gonna end well for you," or, like, "I can't let you do that because something" like,
Yeah.
yeah, having it had more knowledge than you, so it would be able to warn you off of dangerous situations or bad situations.
Yeah. All right. So I feel like I knew nothing about AI 2 years ago, and now it's so much in our lives already. Yeah. I feel like if laws and personal beliefs didn't slow it down, it could be there soon. Yep,
Yep.
that's true. Oh, and Keisha said that it terrifies her. It is terrifying, honestly,
It
especially
is.
if it's like listening. And there's like movies. What is it called? I can't remember the name of it now, but there's a new movie coming out, and it's like this home AI system. It's a horror movie,
Okay.
but it's this home AI system that is supposed to like help make your life easier. But then, of course, it things go south.
Yeah, that
So
sounds good.
yeah.
Sounds like something I would watch.
Yeah, so if you had a choice, okay. Yeah, like in emergency situations
Mhm.
and whatnot, that would be really, really
Yeah,
good.
totally.
Mhm.
Yeah, a
Uh,
lot of our skills are
mm,
are becoming less important as technology advances.
yeah. Okay, where was I? All right. So, obviously in the book, we are following a few of the villagers like Emery and her daughter Clara. And at some point, they find out that they are not actually human. They were created in a cauldron lab type situation to help aid real humans and human society. So, how would you feel if, one day you were revealed this secret that you're not what you thought you were?
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. I don't imagine it would feel good. I think it would feel pretty bad. I do feel like there's an element of like real life there of coming to the realization that like even all humans are not really treated equally. And
Mhm.
like some people are treated like they're there to serve other people who have more, privilege or power or whatever it is. So I imagine it would just be a more extreme version of that. And especially if you literally don't have the like physical ability to overcome that, yeah, that would that would be really rough. And then all of the other things they learned too about um like what they're actually used for, like even at the nighttime, like how they
Yeah.
were used for labor and things like that
Yeah.
would be it'd be weird. It'd be really weird. Like it would suck, but it would also it's all you know. So I
Hmm.
don't really know how you would even fully understand like the other option of
Yeah.
like what being fully human was either.
Hmm. Yeah. I feel like if I were in that situation, I don't know how I would handle it. Like, I think Emery personally handled it like it hardly phased her for
Right.
honestly.
Yeah.
Um, but I think I'd be most upset about the fact that at night it's like you're put to work
Yeah. And
and
yeah, and you have no idea. You
yeah.
have no memory, obviously no control over
Mhm.
it. Yeah, that would be pretty strange.
Yeah, but waking up with, like, bruises and scratches and dirty
Yeah.
feet and missing shoes, it's like,
Yeah.
what was I doing in my sleep?"
Yeah.
Let's see. Yep. Sam would be emotional, yeah.
Yeah, they clearly still had emotions and
Yeah,
personalities and a lot of human-like traits.
yes,
And
yeah.
yes, like how we felt most of this book.
Yes.
Exactly.
Emery was sus of everything from the beginning, so I feel like she wasn't surprised. That's true.
Yeah, she had a lot of questions.
Yeah, and it's almost like Nima, um, groomed her for that because she would
Mhm.
lend her all of those, like, murder mystery books, so
Mhm.
it's almost like she was the perfect person to be able to figure out this murder
Yeah.
mystery.
Yeah, that's true, and yeah, Nima's whole evolution, like what she was thinking towards the end is
Mhm,
obviously a point of question in the book. Like she grew to have empathy for the non-humans. I
mhm,
think they were called like Sim something something. So I keep thinking of them as Sims. But um, yeah, but that was interesting how she kind of like grew that empathy and then was kind of on their side rather than
mhm,
the human side.
yeah. Do you remember, like because the elders, they lived so long, do you
Mhm.
remember what allowed them to live past a normal lifespan?
I think just the technology that they were,
Okay.
like, working on because specifically these humans were scientists and they
Mhm,
worked in that lab for a long time. I think, yeah, it was the technology that they were specifically working on, plus they were already that far into the future. So,
yeah,
yeah, I think it was that.
okay. Let's see. Depends on the emotional range you were programmed with. Also, so close to being a human, thoughts and feelings. Humans use them as tools, but they were lifelike. They felt things, so that makes it difficult. Yeah.
Mhm.
It's like they formed bonds with
Mhm.
people and they had, quote unquote families.
Mhm.
Emery was the most human, like of them all. Mhm. Yeah,
Yeah, maybe.
that's true. Crazy how human like they were with having their own thoughts and feelings. Yeah.
Yeah.
I almost
Yeah,
feel like bad for
we
them
were
now.
what?
I said I almost kind of feel like really bad for them now. Like I didn't in the moment of reading it, but now that I'm out of it, I'm like, oh, those poor creatures.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we were definitely made to believe from the start that they were
Mhm.
humans, like, we had no reason to think
Think
we were reading
otherwise.
about non-humans. Yeah, so we obviously, like, had that human empathetic connection to them from the start, and then, yeah, being told, like, "No, not actually humans," is kinda rough.
Yeah. Okay. So I didn't put any question as far as the plot of anything or the decisions that Nima made that kind of led up to everything. But
Mhm.
um, so I guess like would you have done anything differently if you were in Nima's position?
So I don't know. It's so hard because it's just such a different world. Like
Yeah.
I mean, it was really hard for me to understand most of the characters' motivations just
Mhm.
because I felt like obviously we were thrown into this story like really close to the end, like hours away from the end of the world. So we didn't have the whole buildup that they had. But it was kind of hard for me to understand like the different elders, different perspectives, and
Mhm.
why Nima had different intentions than the other elders. And so it's really hard for me to have any kind of semblance of of an idea of like what I would think or want or believe. I
Mhm.
mean, I think if it's the question of like, would you stay loyal to the humans who
Mhm.
you built this whole thing for, which was some of the elders, versus would you start to have empathy for these beings that you created and like
Mhm.
also protecting their lives and wanting them to um like have rights I guess to like rights to a good life and a long life. I think I can see like I would grow empathy also for
Mhm.
the people you're around on a daily basis and like how she became a teacher and was teaching the kids. Like it's hard to imagine not caring for them and like
Yeah.
wanting just as much good life for them.
Mhm.
But you're also keeping secrets from them inherently, just in like their whole existence, in like how they could actually go past the fog, and like that was all um like it was no longer a danger, but they
Mhm.
kept it up as basically the illusion that like they
Yeah.
were all trapped on this island. Um yeah, so you're already lying to them about all that stuff. So it would be very hard to decide like to change the plan based on that. But I think ultimately at the end I liked Nima, and I liked finding out that it was really all her
Yeah.
plan, and
Yeah.
like she is the one who killed herself. Like nobody murdered her. She concocted the whole kind of the whole thing to try to save them. Was nice.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like I think it really comes down to what kind of person are you? Like, are you somebody, yes, that would be loyal to humans, but also kinda selfish,
Mhm.
or be selfless like
Mhm.
Nima was and wanting to kinda leave this new world essentially
Mhm.
to these non-human
Yeah, to make something better.
better. Yeah,
Mhm.
exactly.
And it's the question of like, what is life, and is one form of life more valuable or important than another? Which is like we live with animals, like we live with not humans, so we can imagine what that's like to, um, have to make decisions
Yeah.
about like how do you value a human life versus an animal's life or any other being. Um, and I think for the most part, like a lot of us don't think that humans deserve more of a right to life than other animals and
Yeah.
things. But
Yeah. I think what Nemo was trying to do was so powerful. While she wasn't perfect, I think her heart behind her actions was pure. Yes,
yeah,
I agree. Like, I liked her the whole time, but then once you kind of find out this whole extravagant plan that she'd been plotting, it's like it
yeah,
was impossible not to feel for her and, like, just really have respect for her.
yeah. And it was again just so hard to like all of the characters in the book knew Nima for so long.
Mhm.
They lived with her for years and years, their entire lives. Nima
Yeah.
is the one of the oldest people on the island, so it's hard to imagine like realizing that so late
Mhm.
that her actions and have changed, and so I can see how that would be more jarring and potentially hurtful to them versus us. I think as the reader, it's much easier to get on board with her opinions because
Mhm.
that's kind of how we grow to know her really quickly. So, um, yeah, so I'm much more drawn to be like, yeah, of course that's the right thing to do.
Yeah. All right. So the final question that I had was, have you seen any elements of this book in other works? Could be movies, shows, other books, games, things like that.
Yeah, so I pulled a few things, and actually, as we were talking about this, I was also reminded of Kazuo Ishiguro's
Mhm,
books, Clara and the Sun and Never Let
mhm,
Me Go. I think
mhm,
also have a lot to do with this. They're also like sci-fi futuristic, kind of dealing with non-humans interacting with humans. So
mhm,
definitely, I think those books. The book that I think is the most similar to this book in my mind, I don't own a physical copy of, but it's called The Ferryman by
mhm.
Justin Cronin.
Oh, yeah.
It's like it's an equally dense, like, confusing, you literally have no idea what's going on until
Mhm,
close to the very end of the, book. It felt equally labor intensive to read, but I do think that's my closest recommendation of, like, if you liked the entire reading experience of this one,
mhm.
you could read that one. And then other ones I pulled,
Mm,
Ascension by Nicholas Binge. All of these books I'm recommending, honestly, I, didn't rate super highly, but I think
ah,
they relate really closely. So this one's similarly confusing. And then a couple of books that have to do more with like the end of the world type
mhm,
situations. So Sea of Tranquility is a futuristic sci-fi book, and then Camp Zero is a futuristic, like apocalyptic kind of dystopian sci-fi book. So I
mhm,
think all of these books have a lot of elements that reminded me of each other, and I can't really put my specific like my finger on anything specific that is similar in them, but they give me really similar like memories and vibes as The Last Murder.
yeah.
Keisha, these are all Rex for you. I think you are exactly the person I'm talking to that should try some of these out.
I haven't read Ascension, I have it, but I was really excited about it, but I have heard kind of,
Mhm.
like,
It's a
iffy
lot. It's
reviews,
a
yeah,
lot. It's a
and
lot to keep track of.
yeah. Camp Zero, I read.
Mhm.
I don't
Mhm.
really remember anything about it,
Yeah.
but Sea of Tranquility I loved. That one was 5 stars.
Yeah. D Like I said, honestly, I don't think I rated any of these super, super highly, but
Mhm.
I think I'm just coming to learn, like, what specifically I like in sci-fi books, and in general, really, really dense, complicated books that
Mhm.
you're confused for most of the time are not usually my favorite.
Yeah. All right. So Keisha said that she can't say what because of spoilers, but she saw elements of the 100, especially in the beginning, but they are very, obviously very different stories. Um, just onto this one, but The Humans by Matt Haig. Okay, I haven't read that one. About an extraterrestrial that comes
I
to
think I
Earth
have
and
that
he has
one.
a mission, but he starts to like humans and
Ah,
starts to
yes, I do.
question this mission. I've heard a lot of people enjoy that one.
Yeah, I have it on my shelf, and I have not read it. I've read other Matt Haig
Mhm.
books, but
I think that's probably why I haven't, read it is because I read The Midnight Library, and I did not like that.
oh,
So now I'm, like, nervous to read more of
yeah.
it.
Well, it sounds like it's kind of different because I, on the contrary, really liked the Midnight Library, but
Yeah.
like alternate realities, especially in books, I feel like a Groundhog's Day type thing. I love so
Mhm.
that's a little bit more of that vibe.
Yeah. Gwen said The Giver. Um,
Hmm.
I I remember really liking that book, but I read it back in, like, junior high.
Yeah,
So
it's been a
it's
long
been a
time for
while.
me too.
Yeah. So Lost. I thought of Lost too, but only because of, like, that weird smoke monster that
Oh,
was in the first few seasons that made that weird mechanical sound. So that's one of the things that I picked up on. Some others were I guess there's only one. So there's this video game called Horizon. There's Horizon Zero Dawn and Horizon Forbidden West, and it's post-apocalyptic and it's so far in the future, like normal civilization has completely crumbled, and the people that are still existing have kind of gone back to like this primitive way of life. But there were so many things from that game that I saw in this book, like even cauldrons that grew humans or used DNA to like create clones of past living humans. Um, and just like, I don't know, there were so many things. So,
That's interesting. Did that make it easier for you to picture things in this book, do you think? Like, were you picturing that game or was it still different?
so to be honest with you, I had a hard time picturing anything
I had a very,
because
very hard time picturing anything, so that's why I was asking. Like, maybe that would help give some visualization to it,
yeah,
but
no, not really. I mean, it made me think of things, but yeah, as far as picturing, but I tandem read this with the audio and
Mhm.
I did not like the audio
Yeah,
at all. And
yeah.
I hated the way that the narrator did the voices for the women.
I agree. Well, and I was confused. I also listened to the audio and had it physically. I was confused why it was a male narrator.
Yeah,
Abby was Abby female?
I think so.
I
Or
think so too. I feel like there was
female-ish.
some kind of reveal where people or yeah, the characters were calling her her.
Yeah.
So I was confused why Abby was basically the main narrator
Mhm.
and most of the characters that we were following were
Yeah,
female.
bring it.
I was
Yeah.
confused why it was a male narrator.
Like, it sounded like it was some middle grade type book.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, and, like, every time he would speak, especially for Clara, like this type voice, I'm like, "Oh my goodness, I can't."
That's funny. I struggle honestly with male narrators in general. It has to be a really good book for me to like actually enjoy a
Yeah,
male narrator. But yeah, it really confused me. Yeah, they
yeah,
called Abby a her
mhm. Yeah,
because I definitely pictured it as more of a man because the man was the
yeah,
narrator from the beginning. Yeah.
perfect. Let me see with my voice, yeah,
And
no,
like in the physical book, they had a map
mhm,
which I tried to reference and go back to look at fairly often, and the list of, like, important characters,
mhm,
um, but specifically on the visualization topic, I had a pretty hard time
yeah,
visualizing a lot of it.
yeah. Aside from just, like, a big tropical looking island with flowers
Mhm.
that try to attack you and
Yeah, the island parts, the water parts, the fog
Mhm,
was easy to obviously, like, picture. The village and when they were all together was
mhm,
fine, but, like, when they were, yeah, going on the journeys and going to, like, the labs and even understanding how far away all of these things were
mhm.
was really difficult for me.
So, I mean, I guess in that respect, like, when they are in the labs or the cauldrons or whatever,
Mhm.
I guess, yes, that part I was able to visualize a little
Mm.
bit better because
Mhm.
of seeing it in that game.
Mhm.
That was probably, like, the only part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be useful. I wonder I wonder if any of his books are in the works of being adapted or if that's an option for any of them. And I wonder if for me in the future, like watching one of his adaptations
Mhm,
before reading the book would help in that regard because I have had that happen with books where I actually don't mind watching the movie before reading the book because I like having the visual
yeah,
sometimes of the movie when reading the book.
mhm,
Like I haven't gone back to read Dune yet, but I think having watched the movie Dune would help a lot in reading the book Dune because I tried to just read the book
yeah,
and that was a no for me.
yeah,
Just like none of it worked. But for really dense, confusing,
mhm,
and especially like sci-fi type books, I
yeah,
think it helps to have some kind of visual to latch onto.
yeah. Alrighty. So, those were all the questions that I wanted to go over. So yeah, that
So
was
what were your final thoughts? What what did you think of the book?
I ultimately gave it 3 stars. I struggled a little bit because I don't know, some parts were exciting. I'm like, "Okay, maybe it's a 4," but then I was like, "I hate the audiobook." So, I think if I would have read it physically, it potentially could have been 4 stars.
Mm,
But the parts that it, like, dragged, made me want to do 2 stars. But yeah, ultimately, because I mean, the last like 50 pages were pretty exciting, just how
Mhm.
quickly everything was kind of coming together.
Mhm.
So yeah, 3 stars. What about you?
Yeah. I also gave it 3 stars.
Mhm.
For a large majority of it, it was in, like, 2-star territory,
Okay.
and again, it's because I think I know just about myself, like, it's I think what he intended to do, it obviously worked. Other
Mhm.
people obviously really enjoy it, which is great. I think it's just the type of story that I don't quite love. Like I said, I don't like being intentionally confused for a
Yeah.
large portion of the book. I would rather have all the information. I really like sci-fi books where like you get deep into the nitty-gritty of how everything works. So the
Mhm.
parts that I did like of this book were learning all of those intricacies of like this community and how these people operated. I know we didn't talk much about like the falling asleep instantly and then waking up at a certain time instantly. Like that was all super interesting to me. But like as far as the character dynamics were hard for me to latch on to and understanding just the big picture what was going on.
Mhm.
I didn't enjoy, but I agree like the last portion of it was the most satisfying. I enjoyed ultimately like the wrap up of the mystery. I was pleasantly
Mhm.
surprised by how all of that came together. And then also, like I said, or like we said, I liked that author's note. So I ended on more of a high note. So it
Yeah.
landed at 3 stars ultimately. But like the whole reading experience was much closer to 2 stars,
Yeah. Unfortunately.
unfortunately. But I mean, like still fun to talk about. And I love books that have concepts
Mhm.
that are fun to talk about. Like my husband always says, like, you're such a concept, like a sucker for concept. And I am. Like I will be so interested in any good plot, even if it's by an author I don't enjoy or whatever it is, because I just want to see
Mhm.
how it plays out. And I love talking about like how you would react in similar situations like we have been.
Yeah.
And I know that this is a somewhat buzzy book of this
Mhm.
year. So it's fun to be in the know. So I have no regrets about like actually reading it and having read it. But it's informing my personal taste, uh, like knowledge about myself and what I enjoy in sci-fi
Yeah.
books.
Yeah. It was definitely very genre bending, like, I would say it
Mhm.
was equal parts sci-fi and murder mystery,
Yeah,
which I have definitely never read before, so
yeah, true. And I don't know. He also talked about in his author's note how like he has really big ideas,
Mhm.
and by putting them into the setting of like isolated closed circle mysteries,
Mhm.
it inherently has to feel small or has to like fit in a small box.
Yeah.
And he talked about that challenge of like how do you take these grand ideas and fit them in such a small setting and story. And I think I struggle with that a lot too. Like
Mhm.
some of these things, in isolation, or if it would have just been one, either the sci-fi or the murder mystery, I think would work for me a lot better. But
Mhm.
that's definitely what he does is like jam pack a bunch of things into one very small, isolated box.
Yeah. And I think actually in the Discord, somebody, I can't remember who, they had said something about they maybe wish that the murder mystery wasn't even part of it, that there could have
Hmm.
been plenty of plot, plenty of us to go on
Yeah,
if it was just the sci-fi elements, like, "There's
yeah,
the fog coming, we have to figure out how to stop
yeah,
it." Yeah.
yeah. I think so too. And because there was somewhat of a portion of it that, like, even before Nima even died, like we were
Mhm.
still trying to figure out what's this end of humanity? Like, what are we trying to do here? So I agree. I think it also could have worked without that whole murder mystery.
Yeah.
But
Then what would Emery have done the whole time?
yeah, it's what he does. So I get it.
Stuart Turton reminds me of a modern day Agatha Christie. Love being given clues to try and solve the mystery along the way, so that's why I think I like them both. That makes sense. I
So
see
did you
that.
solve the mystery then, Keisha? I'm curious to know. Like, I agree, like, some of the intrigue of murder mysteries is trying to determine who did it. Um, I really wasn't trying to do that in this book because I was like, "I have no idea what the heck is going on, so just tell me." But I'd be curious to know if you predicted the ending.
This thing is definitely murder mystery mashed with different genres. First book was a classic, second was a haunted it's a haunted cruise ship? Ooh, maybe I do wanna pick that one up.
Yeah, the
Uh,
first book though, man, the first book, like, it feels like a classic murder mystery, but it takes such a hard freaking left turn at the end of that first
oh,
book. It is wild. So,
ooh.
I don't know that I don't know that I would pitch it to, like, only typical murder mystery lovers because
Mhm.
it deviates, but
Yeah. See, when people talk about it to me, I'm like, "Ooh, that sounds really good," but if it's the style that this was, I'm like, "Oh, I don't know."
it's very confusing for a lot of it because it's so the main character, like I said, like wakes up in another person's body every day. So like
Mhm,
it's this house and there's I think this party going on.
mhm,
So there's all these party guests and then you get like a chapter from each of them with the main character's consciousness in each of those characters in their body going through their actions of the night and then he has to like learn from each of them
mhm.
how it all fits together and solve the mystery, which sounds really good, and then it just, like, goes off the rails completely.
Oh, boy. Seems like it would be maybe a little exhausting too, like, especially if there's a lot of the same stuff kinda happening in the different
It
points
is a
of
bit
view.
repetitive,
Mhm.
by the nature of it,
Yeah. Thank you so much for oh, of course. Thanks, Jordan, for
Yeah,
being
that's
here and
awesome.
joining me.
Yeah, no, thanks so much for having me.
Good. Yes, I'm glad. That's definitely a huge reason that I wanted to launch this book club is, I haven't seen a science fiction book club, and I
Mhm,
know some people are curious but intimidated by
mhm.
the genre, so
Yeah, definitely.
yeah. Didn't like the audio, so it's 2 stars for me, think with different narrator. Yeah, for sure. Like, a female narrator,
Yeah,
definitely, and someone that didn't speak in falsetto to personify a female character would have been great.
agreed.
At its heart, it's a traditional, murder mystery, which I love, but in such an interesting and unique way. Thought-provoking, great writing. Mhm.
Definitely unique.
Yes.
That's
And
very evident.
Sarah Cat and Gwen were lovely with
Yeah.
it is, like, I love the colors.
Yeah, and I don't have the special version. I think okay, yeah, you do with the
Oh,
yeah, colored pages, the sprayed
mhm.
edges. But yeah, it is a really pretty cover.
Gwen is excited about his next book. Do we don't have, like, a title or anything, right?
I don't know anything about it. We can
I think in his author's
look
note,
maybe on Goodreads,
I think he was just saying, like, he's still kind of
figuring it out.
in the concept of it, and he's
Yeah.
like, "In 3 years, it could be something completely different."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not seeing anything on Goodreads
Okay.
yet.
So Keisha did not solve the mystery of it being Nima. I mean, honestly, who would have guessed that?
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
First book has a better twist. Ooh. See, and I guess, I don't know. I didn't feel like it being Nima was a twist, but I gauge twists based on how much they surprise me.
Yeah, well, and I think it's more of a reveal in this case because
Yeah,
we know that's what we're trying to solve. And
yeah,
like
that's true.
you were saying at the very beginning or maybe before we even hopped on, like it went through a few iterations of like it was this character,
Yeah,
either because they admitted something or like somebody declared it was them. And so then we like operated under that assumption for a little bit and then
mhm,
it would be like nope actually it was this person nope actually so I agree I think it was more of a reveal because it
yeah,
was like the grand conclusion but it didn't change the story and it didn't change how we perceived the story or anything it
that's true.
was but I like I said I didn't see it coming that it
Mhm,
was all her to begin with.
yeah. It makes sense, though.
The first one is much more of a twist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh, you guys might convince me to pick it up, I don't know.
Yeah, you might as I mean, if you're interested, you might as well give it a try, I guess, and then you can either rant to me about it, or you can gush to Keisha about it, depending on where you land.
Perfect. Not usually into sci-fi, so not sure I'll read all the book picks, but have enjoyed the first 2 months. Well, good. I'm glad to hear that. Yeah, we don't have any of the like typical sci-fi like space books for the rest of the year. And just as a reminder, we are off November and December, but we'll pick back up in January. I do have quite a few space ones though that I want to get to next year. So hopefully I'll be able to find some co-hosts that'll be interested in joining me for those.
That's exciting because I
Yeah.
do like space books. I
Yeah.
really like space sci-fi.
Yes. Okay, so a couple more things I wanted to go over. First is, in case any of you missed it, oh gosh, can I stand up? We do have merch now through Bonfire.
So cute.
And I went a little wild. I got four. I got a hoodie, a crew neck, a tank top, and a t-shirt.
Love it.
I
For
love
all
it.
the seasons.
Yes, exactly. So if you guys are interested in repping your favorite sci-fi book club, the link for the Bonfire merch link is in the description of Libronauts Book Club Instagram. It's also in the Discord. And then the other thing is, of course, next month, starting tomorrow, is going to be The Light Pirate by Lily Brooks Dalton. And my co-host for that is going to be Gwen of Gwendolyn Kensinger. So I hope to see you all next month for that discussion. Oops, we have one more comment. Yes, and then in September, I'll be reading Foe with Keisha, Foe by Ian Reid. I'm excited about that one.
Those are two good ones coming up,
Yeah,
I will say. I've read
yeah.
both of them, so they're gonna be
Oh,
great
have you?
discussions. Mhm.
Ooh, okay. See,
Mhm.
before Gwen suggested this one, like I'd heard of it because of Book of the Month, but I'd
Mhm.
never really had an interest to pick it up. But
Yeah.
I've been trying to research it a little bit to get familiar
Mhm.
with it so I can try to like market it to the book club.
Mhm.
And it
Mhm.
sounds really good. And I've heard that
Yeah.
it has a historical fiction feel, which I'm kind of a
Mhm.
sucker for.
Yeah. Yeah, historical fiction and, like, a climate element, which is
Mhm.
really I really enjoyed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Perfect. Well, thank you again, Jordyn, for joining us for July.
Yes.
It was
Thank
wonderful
you for
having
having
you.
me, of course.
And thanks everyone for joining, and we will see you next month.
Sounds good.